welcome everybody. It's wonderful to see you all again. Our Sangha, our community of practitioners for these 8 weeks together, 8 weekly meetings together. I've been looking forward to it. So it's wonderful to see you this morning, this afternoon, and this evening. We have to keep track of where everybody is. So that's how it is, morning, afternoon, and evening. So as we continue exploring these 7 factors of awakening, these 7 factors of enlightenment today, we'll look into a number of aspects of the 3rd factor, which is energy, effort in our practice. And this is one of the energizing factors or the energizing qualities of these 7 factors awakening. The first 2 being mindfulness and investigation. These energizing qualities are factors. So a couple of weeks ago, we touched in starting with the first factor, mindfulness. Attending carefully and wisely and mindfully to any of the objects that arise in one of the 4 domains or 4 foundations of mindfulness. The first being the body, the second being the feelings of pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, and the 3rd domain of mindfulness being mind objects, objects of the mind, and the last domain of mindfulness that we talked about, and I hope you are continuing to explore to whatever degree you're ready for that, being the recognition of dhammas, the recognition of the true nature of every experience that comes in through each of the 6 sense doors. And as our mindfulness becomes steady, we learn to discern the particular and the universal features of an object more and more clearly. And we're also more and more clearly able to distinguish between the wholesome and the unwholesome states of mind, with ever more subtlety, ever more subtle distinctions that arise in the process through our practice. So those were the first 2 weeks of our meeting together. Last week, we explored the 2nd factor of awakening, investigation and discernment of states, developing and deepening our process, our understanding of investigation. And with this, our interest and our effort is inspired. Hopefully it's been inspired through the week as you've been practicing. It's inspired and fired up in a more ongoing way. And so what does this mean? It means that the 3rd factor of awakening, the 3rd enlightenment factor is aroused. This factor, this quality of energy, of effort. As each subsequent factor arises, those that have already arisen, they don't disappear. They remain alongside as an accessory, we could say, with each of the factors developing and maturing in conjunction with each other. Eventually, and inevitably, leading to an awakened heart, an awakened mind. So today, energy, effort, and the Pali word for this is virya. And it's so intimately connected to the effort involved in practicing. Basically, it's the mental effort, it's the energy that's present in every single moment of mental activity. It's the mental and physical effort and energy that's present in every single moment of mindful awareness and investigation. So this is where we'll put our attention today. So we'll begin sitting, settling into your seat. The chair, the cushion, the couch. Take a moment to settle in. Embodied. A whole body sense of sitting, the posture, keeping it very simple. Connecting with touch points, points of contact. Your bottom connecting with the chair. Maybe noticing softness or hardness, or maybe temperature, warmth. Hands touching each other or hands and legs touching. For some of you, the back body and the back of a chair or couch touching. And just simply notice touching. Allowing the body, heart, mind to relax. Mindful attention, mindful presence, alert, bright, connected. And bringing a mindful attention right now to the taste or the quality of energy you're feeling in the body, in the mind, heart. Not trying to make a certain kind of energy experience, not trying to get to it or get it, but just noticing, how is it? And when the breath appears in your field of mindful presence, bringing the energy of mindfulness and investigation, to the breath, receiving the breath, however it's breathing itself. This breath of life. This breath that we share with every single living form on the planet. All breathes. We all breathe. My breath, our breath. Connecting with the sensorial experience of breath, wherever it's most directly and clearly felt in your body. The energy of mindfulness and investigation, connecting with other bodily experience, sensations in various areas of the body arising, manifesting in particular ways, changing, moving, dissolving, getting stronger, weaker, bringing an energy of mindfulness and investigation into the body. Remembering to return, coming home to the breath. again and again when there's not much happening sensorially in other areas of the body. Not trying to get anything, not trying to get to any particular experience, but interested, making an effort, putting forth the energy of mindful presence, investigative interest. Into just what is arising, however it is. Opening up the energy of mindfulness and investigation to the mind. The mind's relationship to the sensorial experience embodied. Pleasant, unpleasant, or maybe neutral. Mindfully noticing states of mind. With a degree of investigation, noticing if there are stories accompanying the arising of states of mind. Letting go of the storyline, not being seduced into it, not following it. Underneath, accompanying a story, maybe there's hope, maybe there's fear, maybe there's anger or delight. Maybe there's sadness, joy. Not clinging to the states of mind, not trying to change them, to get a better one, to keep it. Just noticing, how is it? What is the experience of any given state of mind embodied? And the taste of it in the mind, and how does it change? The energy of mindfulness and investigation. Seeing more and more clearly the nature of our experience. And back to the breath, remembering to come home again. One in breath, one out breath. However it is. Checking in every now and then. With the quality of energy that's being put out in your practice. Are you trying too hard? Is there a tightness and a tension? Quality manifesting energetically. Responding to that, allowing the heart, mind, and body to relax. With a bright, receptive presence. Is there a kind of murky, thick, lethargic energy showing up in your practice? Recognizing it without judgment, noticing it. And bringing some interest to it. What is this experience directly? Not sinking, not getting lost in it, but actually taking an interest. Brightening up the energetic capacity. Making some effort to take an interest. And noticing if the quality of the effort and energy being put out into your practice is balanced, open, receptive. some ease and spaciousness. Interest. Bright, mindful, investigative presence in relationship to what's arising. So checking in every now and then as we go through our practice period together. How is the energy? How is it showing up? What's the quality of the effort that I'm making? Breath by breath by breath, as it breathes itself. The intimacy of our practice. The nature of experience available to be known. Through every single facet of our experience. Relaxed, interested, receptive. for the last few moments of this sit. Coming home to the breath. Wherever it's most directly and clearly experienced sensorially in your body. May all of the wholesome energies and the fruits that manifest through our practice serve with immeasurable impartiality, without bias, without prejudice, towards the welfare, the happiness, and the awakening of all beings everywhere. So we'll take 10 minutes now for some walking meditation, or you're also welcome to do mindful stretching, moving your body. You can do it in your chair can do it off the chair. 10 minutes of mindful presence moving the body. An investigative energy as the body is being moved. And continuing to notice, not continuously, but checking in every now and then during this 10 minutes. What's the quality of energy that's being expended, put out, engaged with this practice of moving the body? And I'll ring the bell in 10 minutes and we'll come back together. So settling into your seat, opening the ear doors, receiving sound. And I'll offer some Dhamma reflection. In the late 1970s, I had the great privilege of spending some time with a woman named Dora Kuntz. Dora was in her 80s then, and at that time she was the national president of the Theosophical Society. Dora was Austrian, and she had quite an unusual upbringing in Indonesia. She was taught meditation at a very young age. And she told me that her parents didn't mind if she missed a meal now and then, if she was outside somewhere playing. But if she missed her meditation period, that was not okay with her parents. Fortunately, Dora didn't rebel against this, and she grew up into quite a rare being. And when I met her in her 80s, she was still very much a dedicated practitioner. In being around Dora, one had the experience of being with someone who not only manifested deep wisdom, but who was also the embodiment of a tremendous abundance of bright, clear energy and joy. These particular qualities are actually two of the things that I remember most about her. Her seemingly tireless energy and her joyful heart. She would work with us through much of the day and then ongoing into the evening, instructing and offering her knowledge and wisdom with tireless generosity. And in the evening, she would speak to us, give us a Dharma talk. And at times during this mode of teaching, something that she was about to say or something that she had just said, or some internal experience that hadn't been or wasn't about to be put into words would somehow strike her as being very delightful. And she would start to laugh. And sometimes she would laugh for a few minutes, even at times slapping her leg in joyful expression. During those times, we never found out what was so funny, but it didn't matter because we laughed with her in joyful expression with her. Dora's energy and delight were greatly inspiring in those days for me. Both of these exceptional qualities of hers have, obviously, since I'm mentioning it so many years later, continued to stick with me over the years. Stick with me as an inspiration and help in leading me on the way to awakening. So energy, virya in Pali, so intimately connected to the effort involved in practicing. It's the mental effort, the energy that's present in every single moment of mental activity, and the mental and physical effort and energy that's present in every single moment of mindful awareness and investigation. And as many of us have tasted at times, there's a kind of courageous and balanced effort that we're called upon to make in our practice. The about to be Buddha's tremendous determination and energy, and the flow of his effortless effort that night under the bo tree meant that there was just enough effort being made, just enough energy being expended, not too much and not too little. And although each of us knows that energy and effort are essentially necessary for our practice, during times of a retreat practice, in a very intimate way, and also in our daily life practice, it's also shown to us directly and clearly that a great dedication and enthusiasm, a balanced exertion, and wholehearted effort is needed to really, truly engage in this process of awakening. If anyone ever told us that it would be really easy, that one just kind of floats through it and then reaches the other shore without expending much energy, without expending much effort, well, if we're told that, we can be sure that they were not speaking from experience, or that for some reason they weren't telling us the truth. So an important and really crucial aspect of our practice is learning how to arouse the appropriate energy and effort, learning how to make a wholehearted effort in the right way. Too much effort leads to too much energy, which can manifest as restlessness. Over-efforting can sometimes result in contracting around experience and a tightening up or a tenseness in the body and the mind, rather than an open flow and an increase of energy feeding the blossoming of our practice. Too little effort leads to too little energy, which can manifest as sleepiness, lethargy, and also maybe mind states of discouragement or doubt, rather than zestful interest and inspiration. So it's a balancing act, we could say. It's kind of like tuning a guitar. If we turn the peg too much, what happens? We over-tighten it. The string breaks. If the string is too loose, there's very little sound. And in both cases, the instrument is out of tune. When the instrument is tuned just right, we can play. The enlightenment factor of energy is the factor that strengthens other factors that are arising or emerging at the same time that a vigorous practice energy is present. Very often, energy is inspired and initiated by a sense of urgency. Pali word for this spiritual urgency, this urgency to awaken, is samvega. And I'd like to talk a little bit about samvega in light of this urgency to awaken, which is the translation of samvega. So taking a look at a question that maybe you have asked yourself at times over the years in relationship to your practice. Why do I practice? Why do I practice? And you might add to that, what are the seeds that bring me to spiritual practice? What are the seeds that brought me here to this particular series of mini retreats? And a few more questions that may have crossed your heart, crossed your mind at times. What is life about? What is death, its significance, its meaning? Can I be happy and truly at ease in this life? How can I live gracefully, peacefully, with all of the challenges and difficulties in this changing world, with all of the challenges and difficulties within me and all around me, right here, right now? Our practice isn't about getting caught up in mulling or stewing over these questions, but rather these questions can be taken in as a motivating force, as an inspiration towards connecting to and dropping more and more deeply into our practice. Samvega, the urgency to awaken, is not an energy that's fraught with any tense, frantic, or obsessive qualities, but rather it's a quality of mind, a quality of heart that very often comes from some degree of understanding the natural laws of the way of things, some degree of understanding how it is. For instance, understanding that human behavior rooted in greed always breeds disappointment, because everything is in a constant state of flux. Everything is in a constant state of change. For some of us, this urgency may be experienced through feeling the enormity or maybe the subtleties of the physical and mental hardships and challenges in life right now during this COVID era. The suffering in life from this perspective. Or we might be connecting to the hardships in life via the big general picture, and maybe also in a planetary sense related to our global warming crisis and the ignorance and the greed that is driving so much of the governing and business here in the US and in myriad other places on this planet. Or Samvega may be experienced specifically through the various permutations of the hardships and challenges in your very own life. For some of us, the urgency to practice and awaken comes from what might be a long accustomed or possibly a new sight in relationship to the mental pain felt in observing or directly experiencing bias or judgment, prejudice in relationship to race, in relationship to culture, in relationship to economic circumstances or gender or age, in relationship to sexual preference. Along with any of these experiences and the accompanying mental pain, we may also experience a vague or maybe not so vague sense that it really doesn't have to be this way, that there's another way. And experience an urge to move towards this potential other way. When a spiritual urgency first stirs us, it may be an emotional state that is somewhat difficult and may be disturbing, actually, until it finds a clear and healthy direction to connect to. One of the wonderful attributes of the stirring energy of Samvega is that it itself has the power to move us in a clear and healthy way towards finding a wholesome direction to connect to. An important point, very important point to recognize and to acknowledge is that continuing all along the way of our practice, Samvega is a necessary, essential, and motivating energy for successful practice. The energy of Samvega, this urgency to awaken, is the movement of the heart, an inner response, both within our formal meditation practice as well as outside our formal practice times. For me, it's the movement of my heart, the movement of my heart experienced as a response rather than a reaction, to let go deeper into my practice on and off the cushion. It's often experienced as some degree of ardency, an inspired heart, an inspired mind, a passion for spiritual practice, something that I'm sure most of you have felt at times, and maybe part of what brought you to this series of mini retreats. There's a beautiful account of Prince Siddhartha Gautama coming face to face with what are called the four heavenly messengers while being driven in his chariot through the city after all of his youthful years of isolation in a kind of make-believe world. This account of his coming face to face with old age, sickness, death, and a person dedicated to understanding the truth, a person dedicated to awakening. And maybe this story is more than just symbolic or metaphorical. Considering the fact that these messengers, these four messengers, well, actually, maybe the fourth messenger isn't so common in this day and age here in our lives. But still, considering the fact that these messengers are very common events of life for all of us on this planet. Old age, sickness, death, and to some degree, in various places on the planet, the messengers of the truth seekers. Considering the possibility that the great and ripe mind of young Siddhartha on those morning chariot rides experienced these very common aspects of life much more clearly and much more deeply than had ever occurred before. So deeply that he was moved and inspired to leave the ease and the comfort of his life to search for the true nature of life. He was moved and inspired to awaken from the ache of delusion in relationship to the complacent lull and the very familiar habits of his life. And isn't it really the same case for us? That much of the time, with the many times that we've each seen these same messengers, both outwardly and inwardly, we've reacted by ignoring them, reacted by distracting ourselves in myriad ways. For instance, all of the various ways that we react by what we do to various aspects of our aging bodies. Consider that one. Or maybe we've reacted by pretending or believing that something else is happening. Until somehow at least one of these messengers touches us so deeply that we respond rather than react. And we respond in a similar way as did Siddhartha, by being moved and inspired to walk a different path than constantly feeling overrun with sadness or anguish or fear, or by experiencing the contraction of attachment or anger or confusion in relationship to the very natural occurrences of life. I mean, really, truly, aren't our closest surroundings full of stirring things? Stirring in the sense of samvega. If we don't generally perceive them as such, isn't it really because of our habits? The habits that render our vision dull, the habits that render our heart insensitive or reactive. The Buddha tells us, rouse yourselves, sit up. What good is there in sleeping? Meaning the sleep of ignorance, the sleep of delusion. For those afflicted by disease, meaning the dis-ease of suffering, the dis-ease of constant dissatisfaction. For those afflicted by dis-ease and struck by the arrow of craving, what sleep is there? And he goes on to say, rouse yourselves, sit up, routinely train yourself to attain peace. The Buddha tells us that energy which is wisely initiated and wisely used should be regarded as the root of all insight, the root of all attainment. So clearly, it's a factor of awakening. Classically, energy is described as manifesting in meditators as non-sinking, non-collapsing. Energy and effortless effort is actually a circular happening, we could say. We put forth energy. We make an effort in every posture in our practice, sitting, standing, lying down, moving. We put forth energy and we make an effort in every moment that we mindfully connect and investigate. In every moment that we explore our immediate direct experience. And at least some of the time, it's just the right amount, just the right tuning. It's quite important to bring a mindful attention to the quality of effort that's happening, to pay attention and to tune up every now and then. Whenever there's just the right amount to put forth, then this energy and effort creates more of itself. And we enter into the circle of what we could call sustaining energy, what we might call the experience of an effortless effort in our practice. And we're cleared for takeoff, so to say, as shown in the photograph that Kathy sent with the email reminder for today's mini retreat. We're cleared for takeoff. The Buddha, with his great clarity and great compassion, spoke about what he termed is the nutriment for each of the enlightenment factors, as I spoke about last week in relationship to the investigation of states factor. So what is the sustenance? what is the active nourishment that we can feed the heart and mind for the arising, development, and fulfillment and perfection of the enlightenment factor of energy. We're told that an important piece is to give a careful and a wise attention in reflection to the fearfulness of states such as great anger, hatred, desire, fear, jealousy, and constant dissatisfaction. States where no happiness exists. This wise and careful attention can inspire a sense of urgency, bringing forth a deeper and stronger energy for practice. And we're also told to reflect on the journey of awakening to be traveled, the journey taken by all of the Buddhas and the great disciples. And this being the very same journey that we're taking. And to recognize that in fact, it can't be taken by a lazy, idle person. The Buddha encourages us to reflect on his great energy and to reflect on the remarkable, really, truly remarkable helpfulness of his teachings and the noble and beautiful heritage of the Dhamma that we're connected to. And to reflect with the understanding that the best way to honor these things is through our diligent practice. And he tells us to reflect on all that has so generously been given to us through our lifetime. And in the more immediate present, reflect on what has been offered to us so that we can sustain our practice. And that the best way to acknowledge, the best way to give thanks, and the best way to be a credit for this is to produce great fruit in response to the generosity of all of the givers. We're encouraged to reflect on and see the benefits of cultivating concentration. And maybe for some people, also jhana, which is partly dependent on the cultivation and development of energy, as well as itself helping to nurture energy. And we learn that stiffness, dullness, and sleepiness of mind and body can be removed by bringing a careful and wise attention, for instance, to the perception of light, or by changing postures if necessary, or by spending some time outside, but spending some time out of doors. And of course, by bringing a careful and mindful attention to the experience of sleepiness and lethargy itself. The Buddha tells us that a very important, and actually he calls it the chief external condition for the arising of the factor of energy, is to associate with energetic people and not to spend a whole lot of time with lazy, idle people. He tells us to review what the most important endeavors are in relationship to our practice. And he indicates quite strongly that cultivating the 7 factors of awakening is a primary endeavor if we want to awaken. And last, but certainly not least, we're told we should make a resolve to incline the mind, incline the heart towards the establishment of this enlightenment factor of energy and effort. During the last retreat that I sat 20 years ago with one of my Burmese teachers, Sayadaw U Pandita, I was very inspired by this venerable teacher, a man who was in his 80s at that point. Abundant Dharma energy isn't necessarily age related. Sayadaw gave a Dhamma talk every single night for a whole month. He offered clear and incisive practice meetings every morning for 6 days in a row each week, and occasionally offered extra practice meetings in the afternoon. He met with various guests and various friends on many afternoons, and he also took a walk on the days when the weather permitted being outside for walking. His Dhamma energy was very powerfully projected out to all of the yogis and was one of the primary factors for the tremendous practice energy that ensued in me during that practice period. I was at times quite surprised and amazed and deeply grateful at how much practice energy was available for me at the age of 62. Considerably and consistently more than in my younger years. So there's hope. There's hope in our old age, as some of us are already there and others of us moving there, and some of us still pretty far away from there, but there's hope. There's hope in our old age if we keep practicing. The consistent and the tremendous energy that Sayadaw put out throughout that whole month-long retreat seemed effortless. I was inspired and thought of a teaching that I'd read and have actually treasured and been moved by over the years from the Chinese Taoist philosopher Chuang Tzu. And this is that teaching. The mind of a perfect woman, the mind of a perfect man, is like a mirror. It grasps nothing. It expects nothing. It reflects, but doesn't hold. Therefore, the perfect woman, the perfect man, can act without effort. So maybe a different definition of perfection than most of us have been conditioned to aspire to. This is our practice, or more accurately, the possibility of our practice. The possibility of effortless effort. The possibility of a tremendous abundance of energy, as was manifesting through Siddhartha Gautama during that now famous night under the bo tree. And so this third factor of awakening, this third factor of enlightenment, effort, energy. The Buddha's instruction is that if it's present, one is to know the enlightenment factor of effort and energy is present in me. If it's absent, one is to know the factor of effort, energy and effort is absent in me. Our instruction from the Buddha is to know how the enlightenment factor of energy comes to arise and how the development of it comes about. As we continue to apply energy in our practice, as we continue to apply energy to this work of mental purification, the purification of the heart and mind, to this process of awakening. A spiritual joy blossoms and grows. And the fourth factor of enlightenment, joy, delight, happiness, rapture, is born. And on it goes. So in next Sunday's mini retreat, we'll explore this fourth factor of awakening, joy. And I'd like to close today's Dhamma reflection with a poem by Mary Oliver. It's called The Summer Day. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous, complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? And let's sit together quietly for just a few moments. Thank you for listening to the Dhamma, and thank you for your practice.